thing with friendship when I was...
Technology is really advanced in these days.
Well, I remember when I was a kid,
family relationships are not really
we used to climb trees there, we used to play hide and seek, when I was really young.
Education creates the future, and
I think the thing with friendship when I was a kid was that, the main thing was that we didn't really have any technology. So, we had like phones, like house phones, but we certainly didn't have mobile phones, there was no internet. So, friendship back then was very directly interactive. We used to always go to the parks, just play even in the streets, go around to each other's houses, play in each other's back gardens. I think that was the best thing about my friends, is that we interacted a lot face to face directly. There was a lot of bonding there, just playing football matches, or just even like in my friend's bedroom, just listening to music together. It was good to have your friend next to you, nearby you all the time. It created a strong bond, and I'm still now in contact with probably like 5 or 6 of my friends that I've known since I was 9-10 years old. One of my very best friends, we've known each other since we were 6 years old. So it's a very strong bond, and something that will last forever.
in these days, friendship is one of the most important things in our life. Maybe it's the most important thing, because friendship is the thing that makes the person who he is. It helps us to create our own character. But nowadays, we prefer friendship as an opinion to, you can just be with your friends and you may not. There's a lot of things that you can do without your friends, and it's just the same. It doesn't matter for us, but having friends makes people feel better. It just makes people better. But communication is one of the most important things for the friendship. And now if we want to stop communication, we stop it immediately, right now. We don't want to look our faces. We use telephones, and just with one click, you can stop whole the conversation. And it's easier for us, because when you talk face to face, if there's something that you don't like, you can run. But when technology goes in, you can just stop whole thing in just a click. So it makes friendships more short and lower quality.
We had a lot of technology in the past. I think each age has its own technology, and life is based around the technology of the time. So just off the top of my head, we had telephones. Obviously, we had television. We had videos. That was before the age of the DVD or computer files that we used to watch films or movies. Or certainly there was no internet when I was a child. But I remember us. We used to trade video cassettes. We used to, with our neighbours, we'd swap films and things like that. Most of my time with my family was spent sitting around the television. The television was always on. Even when we were eating dinner, we'd always be watching the news, at the same time. I had computer games when I was a kid. The thing with technology, it's not necessarily electronic devices. Technology can just be any basic tool that we use to do anything, to play games or to fix things, to make things. And so there was always technology around. It wasn't the same as it is now, but certainly, it was a big part of our lives. I remember you know, I used to have this cassette player that I used to listen to music, and it was always with me. You know, from the age of probably 8 or 9 years old, I was always listening to music on this Walkman. You know, I remember my parents would always come into my room and tell me off because I would be listening to it so loud that they could even hear it in the next room, even through the headphones. So, yeah, we certainly had a lot of technology, and it was a big part of our lives. It's just, it was different from what it is now.
Since the beginning of humankind, technology has been always the most important thing in our lives. It was the thing that makes our lives better, and it was the thing that shows us how much we improved. It was our quality, and technology is really advanced in these days. Look at your phones that can take you every information to you in just seconds, and look at the computers that can do everything. And like, seriously, in these days computers can do everything that you imagine and more. But they're not just the only technology we have. Like, our table is a part of technology, or our buildings is a part of technology. Technology is everything we use, and we always improve it. Because, like, think about 25 years ago. I was not alive, I know, but that time I just see how much it changed, how much we created things, and it made like life a very better. But like, there's a lot of people that thinks the opposite way, because technology may hurt us, but it's not about the technology, it's about us. And I can tell it like, I can show you that it is like this, but I'm just guessing that 25 years ago technology was dangerous as much as it is today. It just doesn't matter. It's about the people who use technology, and technology is the exam paper of the humankind.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, there were all these protests and riots happening in London at the time. I can remember seeing in newspapers and on television, on the news, that, you know, all these people were rioting in London. It was basically like about unemployment. At the time, there was a very right-wing government, a very conservative government, and they were just closing down lots of jobs, lots of whole industries and sectors were being shut down at that time by this government. And so, you know, the people were just out of work, and they were protesting in the streets. And I can remember a lot about that, and not really understanding what was happening, but that, you know, I knew it was dangerous to go into central London. And what else? I remember there were riots in my town later on when I was about 10 or 11, because one of the parties, the very right-wing British Nationalist Party, had their main offices in my town. And when I think I was 11 years old, and these riots started happening, protests against this party, because they were very, very racist, very, very fascist, and lots of people at that time were starting to protest that kind of mentality. And there were huge protests in my town. And I remember my parents saying to me at that time, you know, don't go out, don't go into town, stay at home. You know, I don't want to become part of these protests. Also, my father, I remember, he was on strike 2 or 3 times when I was a child. He worked in a car factory, and again, you know, these conservative governments were just, you know, they weren't improving the working conditions for these people, or they were just taking jobs away, sacking people all the time. And so the workers protested 2 or 3 times, and I can just remember my dad, you know, not going to work, and he was always at work when I was a kid. So there was just a few times where, you know, he was on strike and couldn't go to work.
I think the biggest problem of the country is probably terror because like a lot of people die because of the terror, and what can be a bigger problem than dying people? Like in Turkey, there is a huge part of people that causes terror, and it's like it's been a chaos because no one doesn't stop it or they can't, and it just people die because of it, and I can't imagine something that would cause a bigger problem than this. Like we're not in a war, but I see on the television, I see on the newspapers, internet, I see everyone is against the terror. I think it's it's something that unites people. We all hate terror. Who doesn't like terror? It is more than just a threat. It is something that inside of us, and it's the thing that scares people more. And I just remember that yesterday, yesterday there was an attack in Ankara, and a lot of people died just yesterday, and it makes people terrified because like they are inside of the country, they are with us, and we can't do anything. That makes this a huge problem. I just remember like that. I don't know.
Family was everything when I was a kid. Still is now. But, you know, I think I came from an age where, you know, families spent a lot of time together. You know, every day we had the big family dinner. You know, everyone had to sit around the table at the same time. We always spent time together. You know, even if we didn't want to. And, you know, as a kid you never want to. You want to go up to your room and play with your toys. You know, dinner's not important, you know. Certainly for me it wasn't, but no, you know, my mum and dad were always adamant that we had to spend time together as a family, for better or worse. And, you know, more often than not, it would be for worse. We'd start talking about something, it would become an argument, but that's kind of what family's about, you know. If there's anyone you can argue with, it's your family, you know. At least they don't hold it against you, and, you know, generally it's always forgiven and forgotten. And I think that's something that I miss, you know, like having that time with my family. I certainly valued it. I realise now that I did value it at the time. I even remember I was even like a teenager, 15, 16 years old, and I remember every New Year's Eve I'd want to spend time with my family. All my friends would be going out, they'd be going to parties, going up into London to celebrate New Year together. I wasn't interested in that. I wanted to be together with my mum and dad. You know, my grandmother would come down to visit, and, you know, it was nice just seeing in the new year with them. You know, that meant a lot to me, you know, and so I still have, like, memories of that now, you know, us spending time together. And I think it was the same for all my friends too. Almost all of them had that tight unit, you know, at home. You know, I remember just going to people's houses, friends' houses, and it was pretty much the same, you know, like, it was very normal for families to spend a lot of time together.
Family relationships are not really strong in these days. Like, actually it is strong, but we don't spend so much time together with our family. And I'm not sure will I regret it when I will just grow up, yeah. Old man, I will just remember the past, and I don't know how will I feel, but my friends and people in the country just they don't like to spend time with their mother, father. Just they it's not about not loving them. They of course do love their family, but spending time, they just prefer something better to do, and I like that. uh, I I don't know, does it make our bonds more weaker, but it's just think that people doesn't really want to show their love to their family. I mean, if it can be a part of being a kid, being a teenager, but I can't remember the last time I like seriously did something with my mother. I just like, of course, I eat dinner with her at weekends, but I'm just like, I eat my dinner and I go to my room. I don't see her much, and my friends are exactly like this, and like we do love each other. We just don't show it.
Social life, that was interesting when I was growing up. I mean, there weren't a lot of options, if I'm honest. Looking back, um, the big thing in England really is just to go to the pub, and even when you're like 15 years old, you're not allowed to buy alcohol in pubs, but I mean, that's all you can really do. We would all just meet up at the local pub, and it was just a place to socialise. We didn't drink alcohol, we'd be drinking Coca-Cola or Fanta, but it really was just a place for us to socialise. Before that, when I was younger, it was just, it was all about going to the park. We had a local park, and I mean, you could do anything there. We used to climb trees there, we used to play hide and seek, when I was really young, like 7 years old, 6, 7 years old. Later on, we started playing sports, mainly football. It's like, if I wasn't at school or if I wasn't at home doing homework, I spent all my time at that park with my friends. And it was just, I don't know, I mean, it was quite nice and free. I grew up in the suburbs of London, so we had that kind of space, those kind of free areas in the town, those places for us all to go to as a group of friends. Like one person would come pick me up from my house, and then we'd go on to the next person's house and pick him up, and and then there'd be a big group of us, and before we knew it, we'd go to the park, and we'd have a lot of fun, and it was, there was a lot of trust, I think, amongst the parents. They knew that we weren't going to get up to any mischief in the park. I mean, what can you do? So it was nice to have that freedom to bond with people, with your friends, and learn who you are and how to express yourself in that way.
Internet is a tool that makes our lives easier, and we can reach more people, but is it really same as we go and talk to each other, like when we talk using the internet, or when we phone each other? Is it same as when we talk face to face? I think that it's more fake, because of course you can reach more people and do more things, like you can share your photos, you can chat, or you can just talk to someone that is 100 miles away from you, but it doesn't affect same when you talk with someone that's in front of you, when you look in their eyes. And we don't do that actually, because it's really not just the way you talk or the communication, it's everything is easier, like even lying and even like telling them that you care about them, because you just don't see them, you just don't look in their eyes, so you can say everything you think about them, but it sounds too fake, and it makes our social lives more uh, it makes them really lower quality, and stuff that we do with each other, it is just careless and it's not important for each other. I mean, like going to others' house or near them, talking to them is more important than just writing them or just phoning them. But we don't do that anymore.
I mean, I have to say that education is very good in England, and it was at the time as well. Um, the two schools that I went to were very good. You know, in England we have a different system to the one in Turkey. We have a primary school and then a secondary school. After secondary school, you can go on to further and then higher education. My primary school was one of 4 or 5 in my town, and I think it was probably the best. So I was lucky to get into that. And that then prepared me well for my secondary school, and I passed the exam to get into the secondary school, and that certainly was one of the best in the region. Education is it's always been, I think, very important in England. You know, no matter who is in control of the government, they've always paid a lot of time and attention and a lot of money to education. So the education system is very good. And I mean, you know, the 3 R's, there was a whole, campaign, probably 50, 60 years before I was born, that all children should learn the 3 R's, which are reading, writing and arithmetic. The joke is that, you know, only one of those words starts with R. And that was always, you know, very, very important. I mean, even my mum talks about how good her education was, you know, 40 years before mine. Still now you can ask her quite difficult maths questions or, you know, anything about history and she can give you the answers. So I think, you know, I was lucky that I grew up in a country where a lot of importance is placed on education.
It's a fact that education is the way we create the future. It doesn't change by time. It works exactly the same, but the methods we use, they do change. And I think about education that I get, and it's really good. You know, I'm in a dream school and I have so much good opportunities, but if I have to talk about the whole country, it's not just same as I do, because there are a lot of children that never went to school in their life, and it's just a waste of humans' ideas, their potentials, and like education in our country, it is good, but it's about people, really, not about the government. Of course, government has a lot of things to do about it, but it is the bigger part of responsibility is in the people that doesn't go to school or doesn't send their kids to school, and it's like that's in the future. I mean, I didn't have any friends that didn't go to school, or my old friends. I met them in the school, but I know, I seen the television in newspapers, the kids that couldn't go to school, and I really feel bad for them. And I think our country, like, it has to do something about it, because, you know, education creates the future, and we, like, more than everything, we must care about education. But do we actually? That's a hard question. Of course, we try to make our schools, our education system better, but it's not just the education system or school, it's the people, and it's not in a really good way.